Prince William and Queen Camilla might be close now, but it wasn't a straightforward path to get there, with rows and heartache and complaints of leaking stories along the way. In this programme, I'm going to look at that journey through some of the key moments that got us there and explain why theirs is one of the most important relationships for the British royal family and its future.
What happens when a centuries-old monarchy suddenly breaks tradition in front of millions and the cameras refuse to look away? In that moment, history isn't written quietly. It explodes into the world. That's exactly what viewers saw when the unimaginable unfolded on live television. King Charles stepped aside, and within seconds, Prince William was sworn in as King William V. But while the world celebrated the rise of a new monarch, all eyes locked on one face, Camilla's. Her expression told a story no speech could cover. Her lips pressed tight, her color drained, and the silence between her glances spoke louder than any royal decree. The crown, once thought secure on her head as Queen Consort, slipped away before her reign had even begun. The oath, read aloud for the nation, was enough to unravel years of ambition. And as William's voice echoed through the chamber, Camilla's shock became the moment the world couldn't stop talking about. This wasn't just a ceremony, it was a turning point that the monarchy will never escape. Stay with us, because what you're about to discover goes far deeper than what the cameras first showed. A coronation no one expected. Coronations in the British monarchy are not ordinary events. They are the kind of occasions that take years, sometimes even decades, to plan. Every robe is stitched with meaning, every jewel polished until it shines brighter than history itself. Guest lists are weighed with care, ensuring that the right dignitaries sit in the right places, and no tradition is overlooked. Nothing about a coronation is ever meant to be sudden or rushed. It is the ultimate symbol of stability, a promise to the people that the monarchy is steady and eternal. But this one was different. This one shattered expectations. There were no endless rehearsals, no months of speculation about the crown jewels, or the sacred music that would echo through Westminster Abbey. Instead, the news broke like thunder on a quiet morning. Before the nation could even take a breath, headlines blared, "King Charles signs abdication papers." The shock was instant. For years, the world had assumed Charles would hold the crown until the end of his life, much like his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Yet here was a king stepping aside, not in private, but in front of the world. It wasn't just unusual, it was unprecedented. People asked themselves, why so sudden? Whispers began to spread, filling the silence that official palace statements refused to address. Some spoke of health, hinting that Charles was no longer fit to shoulder the weight of the crown. Others pointed to politics, suggesting that behind closed doors, pressure had mounted for a younger face, someone who could better represent a modern Britain struggling with its identity. A few even dared to say it outright. The monarchy's survival demanded William, not Charles. And so, the throne couldn't wait. There was no luxury of transition, no slow handover from father to son. William wasn't given months to prepare for this moment. He wasn't even given weeks. He was given minutes. Minutes to gather his thoughts, steady his voice, and step into history. As the cameras rolled and the world tuned in, every second carried the weight of centuries. But while William stood on the edge of destiny, another figure stood in silence, watching everything slip away. Camilla. For her, the moment was a slow unraveling of dreams built over decades. She had fought, in ways both public and private, to be recognized, to be accepted, to stand beside Charles not just as his wife, but as his Queen Consort. She had endured criticism, controversy, and comparisons that never seemed to fade. Yet, she had made it, or so she thought. With one stroke of a pen, with one abdication decree, everything she believed secure began to crumble. Her silence was deafening. She didn't shout, she didn't protest, but her face revealed the truth no words could hide. She wasn't losing her husband, but she was losing the crown, that fragile, glittering prize she had spent her life chasing, was slipping through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. And the ceremony itself only deepened the sting. It unfolded with breathtaking speed, leaving no room for hesitation. The Lord Chancellor read the abdication decree, the sacred oath was spoken, and the crown, once Charles's, was lifted for William. Centuries of tradition compressed into minutes. Fast, unstoppable, final. In that moment, history turned a page. The title of king no longer belonged to Charles. It belonged to William. And while the crowd cheered, one woman sat frozen, realizing she had not just witnessed a coronation, she had witnessed the end of her reign before it had even truly begun. The face that stole the show. Television can be cruel. It doesn't wait for you to compose yourself, and it never looks away at the wrong moment. The cameras don't care about dignity. They don't care about saving face. They capture everything, the rehearsed and the unrehearsed, the pride and the panic. And for Camilla, on the day William was sworn in as king, television exposed what she had hoped the world would never see, her raw, unguarded reaction. For millions watching at home, the ceremony was a moment of excitement. They saw William step forward with steady hands and strong words, ready to take on the crown. But while history was being made in front of their eyes, another story was unfolding silently at the edge of the frame. Every time the camera landed on Camilla, the story deepened. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her shoulders stiffened, and her face seemed to lose its color by the second. It wasn't just a look of shock. It was the weight of realization crashing down in real time. This wasn't the life she had envisioned. For decades, Camilla had fought uphill battles against public judgment, against whispers in the press, against comparisons to the woman who came before her. Slowly, painfully, she had carved out her role. She believed she had reached the point of no return, that her position as Queen Consort was secure. But as William's voice grew stronger with each word of the oath, it was as if those years of effort dissolved before her very eyes. People watching from home noticed it instantly. The contrast between William's confidence and Camilla's unease was impossible to ignore. Social media exploded with clips, screenshots, and slowed-down footage of her reaction. Some sympathized, suggesting she looked like a woman blindsided by a decision she never expected. Others mocked, saying her pale face revealed the truth about her ambitions all along. Whether viewers supported her or not, one thing was clear. Her expression had stolen the spotlight. Commentators seized on those images. Political analysts, royal correspondents, and even body language experts replayed the footage frame by frame. Was she biting back anger? Was she holding back tears? Or was it simply shock that her husband's reign had ended so quickly, leaving her powerless in a story she thought she had secured a place in? Each theory made the moment more dramatic, and each rewatch made it harder to look away. And the timing of it all made her expression unforgettable. She wasn't hidden in the background. She was sitting in clear view as William declared his oath with confidence. The more William's presence filled the chamber, the smaller Camilla appeared. For him, this was a coronation, a triumph years in the making. For her, it was something closer to a nightmare where the crown slipped from her reach while the world recorded every detail. That's why people kept rewinding, pausing, and replaying. It wasn't just history being made, it was humanity exposed. The monarchy thrives on control, on polished images, and carefully managed expressions. Yet here was a moment that slipped through the cracks. A moment where the woman once at the center of royal power looked like she was watching her entire future vanish. For William, the day was one of victory. His steady voice and upright posture were the marks of a king ready to lead. But for Camilla, it was something else entirely. She wasn't just watching her stepson take the crown. She was watching the role she had spent years defending, years claiming, dissolve into thin air. And that more than the crown itself, was why her face became the image people would never forget. What forced the sudden change? The bigger question, the one that kept people buzzing, was simple. Why? Why was William sworn in with such urgency, as though the crown itself could no longer wait for its rightful heir? Rumors swirled in every direction, each theory carrying a tone of truth mixed with speculation. Some believed Charles's health had taken a sharp and unexpected turn.
King Charles smiled and waved to crowds this morning, a day after spending time in hospital dealing with side effects from his cancer treatment.
His recent public appearances, quieter and shorter than usual, only fueled that belief. Observers pointed to his slower steps, the way he leaned ever so slightly on his cane, and his visible fatigue during official duties. Could the king himself have decided that it was time to step back, acknowledging his limits before the public saw too much weakness? Others whispered about private political meetings, hushed gatherings behind closed doors where trusted advisors and senior figures debated the monarchy's survival. According to these whispers, the consensus was clear. If the monarchy was to remain strong in a rapidly changing world, it had to lean on the younger generation. William and Catherine, with their image of stability, modernity, and family values, had become the monarchy's strongest card. Handing over power to them was not just a choice, it was a strategy. Still, others pointed toward the palace's internal storms. For months, quiet but persistent reports had surfaced about growing tensions, particularly involving Camilla's influence. What began as subtle suggestions in the king's ear allegedly grew into stronger pressures, creating unease within the royal household. Some courtiers felt her hand in decisions that should never have left the king's desk. Her presence, though polished and poised in public, seemed to cast long shadows inside the palace walls. Whatever the truth, the official explanation delivered through carefully polished statements was buried beneath royal language designed to soothe, not reveal. For the good of continuity, they said, to strengthen the monarchy's future. But anyone paying close attention knew the words were crafted to hide the storm beneath. It was the speed, more than anything, that told the real story. This was not a gentle passing of responsibility. It was abrupt, urgent, and deliberate. Something had shaken the crown so powerfully that even tradition, that ancient shield of the monarchy, was bent. And when tradition bends, it is never for small reasons. In that bending lay the monarchy's most human side. Fear, the fear of collapse, of fading relevance, of secrets spilling into the open. That fear was not hidden. It was written in Charles's quiet retreat, in his decision to step back without a prolonged farewell. But most of all, it was etched into Camilla's face. Observers noted her expression in those last official appearances before the transition. Calm on the surface, but lined with a knowledge that the fight was already lost. She seemed to understand before the world even realized there had been a battle at all. The new king's first steps. William didn't have the luxury of time. From the very moment Charles stepped aside, the weight of the crown pressed down on him. There was no gentle transition, no long pause to prepare. The monarchy demanded immediacy. And William answered without hesitation. His oath was delivered with a steady voice, each word carrying the gravity of centuries. His posture was upright, his eyes firm, his tone unshaken. For those watching, it was clear. This wasn't a rehearsal. It wasn't ceremonial practice. It was the real thing, and William fully understood that every eye, both at home and across the globe, was fixed on him. But it wasn't only the oath that defined this moment. His very first actions as king spoke louder than the promises written on parchment. He carried himself with a calm authority that seemed natural, almost effortless, as though the crown had been waiting for him all along. He moved with purpose, not showmanship, radiating the kind of steady control that people had long associated with strong monarchs of the past. For many, this was the moment they had secretly been anticipating for years. The image of a younger monarch, closer in age to modern Britain, leading with fresh energy and a sense of renewal. The public's response reflected this shift. Onlookers cheered not only out of duty, but with genuine excitement. Commentators highlighted his modern presence, his ability to connect with younger generations who had grown distant from royal traditions. Social media buzzed with posts
The royal rumor mill is buzzing.
praising his first appearance as king, noting how seamlessly he seemed to step into a role that had, for decades, been waiting for him. Even critics of the monarchy acknowledged the sharp contrast between the cautious formality of Charles's reign and the quiet confidence William projected from the start. Yet while cameras celebrated William's stride, they did not ignore the shadows on the edge of the stage. The lenses inevitably turned toward Camilla, and the contrast could not have been more striking. One figure was rising, embraced by applause, lifted by history's turning tide. The other was shrinking, her presence dimming beneath the brilliance of the moment. Camilla's expression told its own story. She had fought for years to find a place within the monarchy, carving a role that many believed would never fully belong to her. And now, in what should have been the peak of her journey, she found herself standing in the background, watching her influence slip away with each cheer for William. The public's applause was not for her, and she knew it. The crown's future no longer included her. As a central figure, it had shifted to William and Catherine, to a new chapter where her battles and sacrifices were quietly fading from relevance. In that moment, the palace revealed its cruel rhythm. It elevates one figure while pushing another aside, offering triumph to some while quietly erasing others. William's confident rise was undeniable, but it was made even more powerful by the silent decline unfolding at his side. For the nation, this was a historic milestone, the beginning of a new era. For Camilla, it was something else entirely. The realization that after years of standing beside Charles, of enduring scrutiny and criticism, the chapter she had written for herself was closing faster than anyone had expected. The aftermath. Nobody predicted. After the ceremony, the world did what it always does in moments of upheaval. It rushed to capture the story in bold headlines. Newspapers carried striking phrases: "A new king for Britain," "William steps forward," "Camilla's silent shock." Television commentators repeated the same points with practiced energy, painting a picture of smooth transition, of history made cleanly and neatly. But behind the polished headlines and rehearsed commentary, a different story was taking shape, one filled with whispers, doubts, and a lingering unease that no amount of ceremony could hide. The question that floated through drawing rooms, newsrooms, and palace corridors was simple. What role would Camilla play now? For years, she had stood at Charles's side, the unexpected partner who slowly but surely carved out a seat at the royal table. She had worn the crown as Queen Consort,
The new king's darling wife has become the Queen Consort,
attended state banquets, and spoken with the authority of someone who had, against all odds, secured her place. And yet, with one swift change, the ground beneath her had shifted. Was she to remain quietly beside Charles, his wife, but no longer a queen in the eyes of the nation? Or would her reduced position ignite new waves of tension within a family already stretched thin by rivalries, scandals, and grief? Palace insiders hinted at something darker. According to murmurs that trickled into the press, Camilla's silence in public was matched by sharp words in private. Some spoke of long nights filled with arguments, of bitterness that could not easily be concealed behind polite smiles. Others claimed she felt betrayed, not by Charles, who seemed weary and resigned, but by the institution itself, the same system she had worked for decades to be part of. To some, she was no longer a queen consort. She was a woman without a kingdom, holding on to a title that now carried far less weight than the one she had once envisioned. For William, the moment of triumph quickly gave way to the heavy reality of his new role. taking the throne had not been the hardest part. The oath, the crown, the applause, all of that was fleeting. The real challenge would be keeping the monarchy secure in an era that questioned its very existence. The public celebrated his first steps, but beyond the cheers lay a daunting path. He would need to prove himself not just as a figurehead, but as a leader, balancing tradition with the demands of modern Britain. Every decision he made from this point forward would be measured not only against his father's reign, but against the legendary legacy of his late mother, Diana, a shadow that still loomed large. And yet, even as William began this journey, Camilla's story was far from over. Though the crown had slipped from her grasp, she remained within the palace walls, a constant presence with influence that could not be dismissed. History had shown time and again that sidelined royals had ways of leaving their mark, whether through whispers in the corridors, alliances formed behind closed doors, or subtle gestures that shifted public perception. To underestimate Camilla would be a mistake. The ceremony may have ended, but its aftermath was only just beginning. For William, it was the dawn of a new reign. For Camilla, it was the start of an uncertain chapter 1, where she no longer stood in the light, but in the shadows, where her very presence could still cast doubts, spark rivalries, and stir tensions that the polished headlines would never fully reveal. The day William was sworn in will be remembered for more than the start of a new reign. It will be remembered for the look on Camilla's face, a look that told a story history books may never fully write down. One moment showed triumph and shock side by side, a crown being passed and a dream being lost. But what comes next may be even more dramatic than the coronation itself. Can William's reign bring stability after such a chaotic handover? Will Camilla fade quietly into the background, or will her influence continue to stir whispers inside the palace walls? The truth is, this story is only just beginning. For now, one thing is certain: the monarchy has changed forever, and the images of that day, William's oath and Camilla's pale expression, will echo through history. If you found this story as gripping as the millions who witnessed it live, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Camilla will accept her place, or is there more palace drama waiting to unfold? Your voice matters, and we'll be watching right alongside you.